yeah.
And now, our feature presentation.
Assalamu alaikum. In the most holy name of Allah, the all-wise, true and living God, to whom all praise is due forever, for giving to you and I a divine leader, teacher, guide, and the greatest of the messengers and his exalted Christ, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And we ever thank Allah and his messenger for giving to us Minister Louis Farrakhan, his greatest national representative of both himself and also of the nation of Islam, both in America and abroad. I greet you once again in the nation's greetings of peace and paradise. Assalamu alaikum. You and I are meeting here this afternoon by the permission of Allah so that we can share much information as time will permit. This is not an ordinary day and time, and this is why this particular meeting was called. This is the first time that I have been asked to address a joint meeting of the MGT GCC class and also of our brothers in the FOI. You'll notice that throughout this particular year, there has been a precedent in this type of joint meeting. There have been many meetings of the MGT and FOI, both here in Phoenix, Arizona, and also in Chicago, Illinois. It is due to the fact that as we grow closer to the end of one world and the coming in of another world, that it pleases Allah, who came in the person of Master Farad Muhammad, that we come together as a family. The family structure is everything to the foundation of Islam. And it is so critical that we understand things in the proper perspective of their family relationship. We know that the father is the head of the household, and we know that the mother works with the father in partnership to try to keep the children and family members all coordinating and functioning properly. I say all of this to begin some of the information that I hope I will be able to share with you this afternoon. It is not a coincidence that this year, 1983, has brought about some of the most dramatic changes and turning points in the history of our nation and also in the history of the world. It is not a coincidence that I am saying these things to you this afternoon in Phoenix, Arizona, in this particular month that is devoted to abstinence called Ramadan. According to the old history of Islam, out of which we are now passing through very rapidly, we know that Surah 2, the cow, tells us in about verse 183 or 185 that it was in the month of Ramadan that the beginning of the revelation of the Holy Quran began. Over a period of 23 years, a little over 23 years, the entire book was revealed to Prophet Muhammad ibn Abdullah. We know that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad has told us that at the end of a specific period of time marked by the lunar calendar time, which was given to us especially through the Arab nation, who calculated this time according to the hijrah or flight of Prophet Muhammad from Mecca to Medina. That all of these were signs pointing to its complete fulfillment 1,400 years hence. We know that 1,400 years ended in 1979. In the fall of 1979, some of the writers say November, they give the date of November, and some give the date of December. And we know that 1980 marked the first year of the 15th century of the Hijrah. And we are now 3 years hence. For several years now, I have devoted a special study to the Holy Quran as I was inspired to do so exactly 3 years ago to this month, the month of Ramadan. It was on December 1st, which occurred at that time on a Monday in 1980, in which I began to read the Holy Quran through once a week. And in this particular month of Ramadan, having completed this initial 3 years of reading, I have learned much. I have learned a great deal more than I would have if I had not been inspired to do so. I would not be able to speak to you right now if it wasn't for the urgency of the time and what we can see coming upon this nation, and because of the urgency upon us to prepare ourselves both mentally and spiritually to be able to handle and to be able to receive what is about to come to the world in the form of a new book and a new scripture designed by a true and living God, put into the hands of his servant, the apostle and the last of the messengers, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. We know that our brother minister Louis Farrakhan has been teaching for the last 6 years, and that he has been speaking more and more in this particular year in his tour that he has been giving throughout the country on a subject entitled Christ's Imminent Return. He makes all things new. And we know that that final group of dissidents, we want to call them that, of opposers, opponents to the messenger and to the new teachings of Islam have been the preachers. Is that right? Yeah. And the minister in his tour is now breaking the ice in the ice houses. And he is getting the ministers and the preachers of the gospel to stand up now, shouting with enthusiasm and joy in the breaking open, okay, of the secrets of the Bible that they had never understood before. If it had not been for the teachings of Minister Louis Farrakhan, through the guidance and inspiration of Allah and his messenger, we would not be able to be the kind of witness bearers that we are today. Do you understand what I mean? We can witness privately in our homes, we can have private discussions, we can have a private exchange of views, but we need a guiding force, a guiding light, is that right? That makes possible a unified witness before the world. That means that the responsibility of witnessing for both the men and the women and our children is now coming upon us. And when I say witnessing, I'm speaking on the level of divine gifts. Divine gifts mean such things as receiving revelation in the form of dreams, in the form of vision, okay, in the form of healing, in the form of all those things that are described both in the Bible and the Holy Quran, as that particular spirit being fostered and being brought forth and coming forth through Jesus after his ascension, when he becomes crystallized into the Christ. And the Acts of the Apostles speaks of it as the disciples and some of the women meeting in the upper chamber or in the upper room. And their tongues of fire, is that right, came over each one, and suddenly they were filled with the Spirit, and they began to witness to the world through the channeling of divine gifts. The book says they spoke in many tongues. They began to break, okay, the barriers of communication through divine gifts. which can only be transmitted to the heart, is that right, of a true believer. So I feel that if we can really understand what is happening right now, we will be the most happiest people in the world. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad stated once that when you find out who you are, he said that will be the greatest and the happiest moment of your life. The preparation that is going on now through our dear brother Bernard Kashmir in sending out throughout the nation specially prepared study guides is a part of the preparation for our people to receive the new book, the new revelation coming from Almighty God, Allah. So this puts great demands upon us, because as the people all over outside of our circle, outside who have not officially registered with the Nation of Islam, the Spirit of Allah is going among the people. And they will be looking for the greater light, is that right? To take them forward into greater understanding of this great man of which the books, Bible and Quran, have coded in a very special language that is now being decoded. The root of Islam is what? Mathematics. And we've been hearing more and more and more on the study of mathematics as the root of Islam. Because we cannot talk to scholars, we cannot talk to scientists, we cannot talk to people who are highly educated and trained unless we are able to articulate the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad directly to their root. He has also stated that the Holy Quran is the root of Muhammad. So if the root of Islam is mathematics, then that means for us to really understand the root of the messenger in this book, that means that we have to understand what? The language of mathematics. Now Elijah Muhammad has further stated that without mathematics we cannot build. He said that we would be subject to a people who know mathematics. And we cannot be subject to anyone if we are being birthed into the new rulership of a new world order. We have to master the languages that will give us the ability to build a new world society. This year, 1983, we have heard Minister Louis Farrakhan, beginning Savior's Day, 1983, expound one of the greatest insights into the messianic secret, is that right? Of the Messiah. And along with that, gradually we've been hearing phrases and statements and formulas referring to specific numbers, one of them being 19, is that right? And perhaps another one being 14. These two sets of initials is the coded language of the Holy Quran. And it is also the coded language of the Bible. It is also the coded language of our lessons given to us to study by Master Farad Muhammad and through the instructions of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. In fact, he said in order for us to go forward into the new world, that we will be tested on our lessons. So that means that to really understand the root of the Quran and to really understand the root of the Bible, we have to understand our first term assignment, is that right? Of lessons given to us to study by Almighty God Allah. Two things come to me. Where can we find the root of this number 19 and the root of this number 14 in our lessons? They were designed mathematically to bring us into the greater knowledge of God and what He's about to do. Lesson number 1, according to the laborers' instructions given by Master Farad Muhammad to the laborers in 1931 in Detroit, Michigan, made this statement. Lesson number 1 is the basis of our work today, is everything to the foundation of Islam. And it is so critical that we understand things in the proper perspective of their family relationship. We know that the father is the head of the household, and we know that the mother works with the father in partnership to try to keep the children and family members all coordinating and functioning properly. I say all of this to begin some of the information time will permit. This is not an ordinary day and time, and this is why this particular meeting was called. This is the first time that I have been asked to address a joint meeting of the MGT GCC class and also of our brothers in the FOI. You'll notice that throughout this particular year, there has been...
Oh, yeah.
And now, our feature presentation.
Assalamu alaikum. In the most holy name of Allah, the all-wise, true and living God, to whom all praise is due forever, for giving to you and I a divine leader, teacher, guide, and the greatest of the messengers and his exalted Christ, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And we ever thank Allah is a precedent in this type of joint meeting. There have been many meetings of the MGT and FOI, both here in Phoenix, Arizona, and also in Chicago, Illinois. It is due to the fact that as we grow closer to the end of one world and the coming in of another world, that it pleases Allah, who came in the person of Master Farad Muhammad, that we come together as a family. The family structure and his messenger for giving to us Minister Louis Farrakhan, his greatest national representative of both himself and also of the nation of Islam, both in America and abroad. I greet you once again in the nation's greetings of peace and paradise. Assalamu alaikum. You and I are meeting here this afternoon by the permission of Allah so that we can share much information as